Hello, and welcome to my lovely, inspiring human potential community. To everyone tuning in, before we get started on today's topic, that is in pursuit of those keys to inner growth and following your heart to the life of an entrepreneur, and to much more that I talk about, guide about, from the podcast to the blog to other online presences which are known to those who continuously tune in. Special announcement: Anchor has allowed finally that listener support button, which means the world for everything that I pursue and wanting to share, and for those who are looking to support the inspiring human potential mission, its purpose, and anyone who believes in general in inspiring human potential, because that's one of those amazing things we can do, and the online world has brought us to be able and do connect, support, and together we will achieve that harmony worldwide. So if you wish to contribute because the inner growth process mindset has contributed to your life, or because you believe in inspiring the world through these different means, please do so. Thank you so much for doing so. And as always, you can reach out if you want to collaborate, if you want to share your story, if you have a personal development process mindset, something that can contribute to others in their unlocking of their untapped, unlimited potential. Reach out to me. The blog, luna12780.com, has my email in the About section. And let's move on to today's topic. As always, the lovely online community has at heart us online entrepreneurs, content creators. We have many different names, but we are all here to inspire human potential in our unique way. And for the inspiring human potential community, we have new podcast patron members only episodes coming this year, because Patreon has started something to support the podcast community, and we are going to use that in a way that expands the inner growth learning material and the ability for you to follow your heart, applying the things that we discuss in our daily Anchor IHP podcast show. So inner growth mindset, lifestyle choices, the journey, the way that you can work through anything that is arising at first as conflict, but that those who tune into any of the material, whether the podcast, the blog, or the website, know that's the opportunity for inner growth and for you to follow your heart. So I look forward to hearing from you all for this first round. It'll be the first year that we have patron members only podcast episodes. With your feedback, I'm sure we will continue to improve and expand all the material that is meant to inspire your higher human potential. I look forward to you joining us. Before we begin today's topic, I would like to share a bit about the foundation of all of the inspiring human potential inner growth content. What you learn about and what we discuss has its foundation in a lifelong accumulated research that involves the fields of humanities and social sciences, philosophy with a focus on existentialism, and recently added basics of neuroscience, physiology, and biology. This research continues, and the wealth of information that I share across different platforms is in the effort to support your inner growth, self-empowerment, conscious living, ascension, awakening, and personal development journey in a way that allows you to understand the distinct human characteristics involved in your day-to-day and overall life, alongside the choices you make, how you feel, and deal with events such as the unknown and unwanted. A simplified breakdown, just to give you an idea, and for the IHP community to keep in mind as you pursue inner growth and self-empowerment, is what is involved in the human's response to day-to-day events and life happening. We have been able to review this, and we always review some aspects throughout the episodes and all the content. 1, the body's nervous system's defense mechanism, flight-fight response. 2, the heart's feelings, emotions, ego, self-response. 3, the mind's conscious, subconscious, and conscious response alongside the established neural pathways, societal culture and knowledge filters, identity, secondary and primary consciousness aspects. This and more is what is involved as you tune into and read the IHP content, whether it be on the blog, the YouTube channel, patron membership site, or the website itself, or the podcast. You will always get to learn something about how to apply an inner growth mindset and lifestyle approach, how to follow your heart and lead with it with that unconditional love, neutrality that we so much discuss, why it's important. And all of this allows you to tap into that infinite higher human potential, which is also a response that one acquires as a body, mind, and heart that is one within you with that ownership. That weight on our shoulders that sometimes people talk about, right? So, I've had a weight lifted off my shoulders is usually the saying, but to have it lifted, right, means it was there. And we all know what that weight feels like the minute we experience something. We're like, wow, that really lifted, this weight off my shoulders. Usually it involves responsibility, it involves emotions, but there's also other weights that sometimes get ignored, meaning when we don't speak transparently, becoming your true self from the heart. So being able to express, it's not that you're not that true self, but it is about you, one, getting completely in touch with that aspect thanks to the inner growth. So thanks to you deciding when you realize that you're upset, that there's something you can learn from it. So realize, meaning you disengage from the usual societal engagement that comes from any insecure ego. And we all begin with insecure egos. Those who tune in know this. I'm talking physiologically. As infants, we begin, and every time our ego goes into a place of insecurity, which is almost regularly since it knows nothing about life, the body is crying or calling the attention. Societal engagement is the first nervous system's response. It's seeking the caregiver's support. On a physiological perspective, the senses can get comforted by holding, but we also know that maybe if there's a body that, for example, is highly sensitive to touch, because there's different I forget, there's a word, but I know that there's somebody in my life that has a child who's highly sensitive to perception. So I can only imagine that child, for that infant, when you're not being caressed necessarily, but when anything touches you, whether it be wind or your clothes, there's a feeling that is heightened. And therefore, as we learn from the neuroscience psychiatrist from the courses that I've been taking, and the first week of May I covered some material that supported our topics, the emotional brain hemisphere 1 is the first to develop from 0 to 2 years of age. And so our senses, our primary consciousness, is getting organized. That flight fight is organized. It's an adaptive response, as one of the most recent webinars I was watching, which was on depression and the nervous system, but they explained that part of the body element. This is the doctor of the polyvagal theory, which I've purchased the book, so I will be learning about that and supporting us with that information. The point is, it's to make the body, that weight, that feeling that I was talking about at the beginning, is an actual physiological weight that comes from that nervous system and the consciousness, our emotional and rational brain hemispheres. At this point, we also think, because we're grown-ups now. The sensorial, so the implicit memory, the parts that are procedural memory and emotional memory. So in our body, all that was organized at that young infancy is something we can still learn about if we pay attention to our body, heart, and mind. And so now that we have a good foundation of the body, we are always going to be integrating it for our regular listeners, anybody who's new. As for bringing together the human and spiritual elements, this is where when you hear 4-dimension, 5-dimension, 3-dimension, 3D, 4D, 5D, those are, you can look at the 5D leadership episode, which was done in mid-June and June. And then you can also just understand that we talk about it as a state of consciousness, the 5-dimension. You can look it up also in quantum physics realm, which would be important because we will move into taking a look at that energy field alongside the body element. And I'm sure that as I gain more information on the nervous system's map out, because I did invest in learning more from a neuroscientific perspective of our body, and I plan on updating you as I gain that information and with those hurts. So the spiritual elements is not because of something of a belief for those who are new. It's actually the word I use, but it means metaphysics, astrology. It's like with tarot or the Akashic records, the aspect of homeopathic and complementary remedies. So I'm a Reiki master, for example, and working with energy and people's auras and people's chakras. I'm gaining familiarity with different energy types, and so it's very fascinating. But this will be for our next year most likely, and it will naturally be included because the community we're building is also in that realm. The spirituality realm, again, not a belief system, but where you're understanding different subject matters because you're interested in all subject matters. You're not closed off to it in the sense that you don't refute information. We're a community that inspires the highest infinite human potential, and so all subject matters get explored equally, and they all have value the same way. I always do my best to integrate the most types of self-ego. So a couple days ago I had an interesting conversation, and I actually shared that in the episode that's not out yet, but to keep it short and not spoil anything. And the sense of self and a different way of being able to perceive that sense of self. So I realized that there's an inclusion that I want to start making, and that is for the person who may feel uneasy at first to be themselves. And by at first I mean when thinking of being yourself, there's this kind of like, well, I don't know, I'd rather be something different because, and that feeling to allow the community to support those who are in that space in the way they need support, which is to be listened to, and then to understand that their approach to life is going to be different than yours because there's the different aspect of how that feels. And so to gain comfort with being yourself can be an aspect that you may go through, and that it's okay, because sometimes we think it's not okay, right? People, oh, you need to love who you are. How is it you don't love who you are? Versus understanding that if there's something uncomfortable, that's one, your own journey, and two, it's something that only through love and support and understanding will you be able to process all of those emotions, because at the end of the day, this is the part of the body. The body memorizes the insecure reactions that we organize on our own from that 0 to 2 years of age. Our flight response is organized at that young age, and by 10 months we have already established how we will be engaging with others based on how we were treated, how they engaged with us. And again, you still are perceiving, meaning when someone, the caregiver, is interacting with you, you have a feeling. And that's why I gave you the example of if somebody, an infant, has heightened sensitivity, they can't speak, the parent doesn't know, they're going to do these standard things that you do if there's too much cold, too much warmth, right? You're going to dress the child. And if the child gets undressed, for example, I mean, how many parents will I see them? They'll cover them up again because obviously, no, you're going to get cold. It's not, good to have you be cold. We don't want you to get a cold. That infant, in the meantime, they might be dreading that heat because their body senses heat and cold differently. This is the component that we don't know, And unless scientists hook up a machine to us, and maybe one day that will be the case, but it's not now, you're not really going to be in the knowledge of that data point. And even if hypothetically we did, you'd need every parent, every caregiver, every person who has an infant to have a very specific outline of what to look for. What I'm thinking of right now is, you'd need to know what chemicals and neuroreceptors are firing, because see, when we learned in the depression and nervous system webinar, even though it was short, and I know that this year I'll gain more information on that since I'm with the association, I purchased the year subscription. They made it clear what's in our bloodstream, the chemicals that are in our bloodstream, the neuroreceptors firing, those all influence our mood. And so depression is influenced by the nervous system, and that the mainstream media and mainstream doctors, clinicians, are not utilizing the new information yet that can support their patients. They're continuing with traditional old format, and that's also why these individuals, the organization, is looking to distribute and share the information in an educational way so that it may begin to be integrated in a professional manner with people and then become mainstream. That word, for example, is shared neutrally. To me, mainstream mass is not a bad or good thing. It exists, and society engagement explains it. And here, getting back to our topic, the way you choose to direct yourself may always become and be a part of societal mainstream and mass media, and or just that societal culture and knowledge. So there is that conformity, which we used in another episode, and it isn't, again, bad or good. There are those who have sense of security with something, and something really a structure, and the structure that the majority of humanity and or again mainstream media is presenting, because that is where the mind will be appeased. Okay, I see 10 data points here, 20 data points there. You're believing because you're seeing. Okay, so we get to transcend that for those who continue the inner belief and expand to the infinite higher human potential of you. But as we talk about all the time, doesn't mean everybody wants to access that area, that realm, because our primary and secondary consciousness, before you even get to the option of being in that infinite space, you're going to be looking at a lot of the cognitive dissonance reactions of your own, which really, when you're doing cognitive dissonance, you're basically getting upset because somebody is saying something different, or life is presenting you something different, that dealing with the uncertainty, unknown, unwanted, those things that bring struggle. And those who have been tuning in, the Inner Growth Program, the Beginner's Journey, is online, and so you can go take it. It's on Udemy. There's free coupon codes on the main website, and you can take the free main modules before you even begin the course to see the teaching style. But that beginner's journey is, for example, very optimal for anybody who wants to start applying the mindset in a way that allows you to follow your heart. It's not that you're not, right? That's the part. You're following your heart, but you're following it with the external and the internal, where there is conflict and struggle. That weight is not necessarily lifted from within. So there's a very big difference when you are doing work from within you, which is why empowerment from within is what lifts that weight off your shoulders, and it does so for good, because you're acknowledging the external finally for what it is. It's not your enemy, it's you coexisting with it, and that's always been the case. And the body, heart, and mind of you have always been involved. Achieving harmony is very possible. It requires, though, your focus. And so if your focus is in societal engagement with the default network that was established at the 10 months, 12 months, even though you are choosing by the time you're a teenager your identity and how you're going to interact, the reality is in that moment you're not necessarily secure unless you are already empowered, and you're empowered in a way that is devoted to being an unconsciously loving person that is yourself. And here's where that sense of self and what I presented to you is important to share today as well, and that it will be continuously shared in different episodes. There are those who, like I was saying, don't feel at ease with the idea and it's a bodily feeling that you want to pay attention to. It's not a thought. Nobody's going to think that they are not themselves, right? That's why even the whole be yourself is funny, because there may be some people of course I'm myself, but when they then tune in, they understand we're going in depth and exploring, and there's that whole inner growth journey. So you're going through the different layers of what it means to be yourself, and then you're allowing yourself to bring forth all that is you with lightness, because the minute you're going with the flow, because your mind and heart are in harmony, because all the decisions you make are with an empowerment from within at the level of the ego self, you have and are continuously utilizing the detachment of that nervous system, but the one like when you're in a meditative state. You are one with yourself and the universe and life, that day to day, when you're interacting life struggles in those conflicts for you, they are not felt in that format, meaning you do feel the feelings, okay? So let me be clear, but you are not, your body does not hold fear of it. It's not struggling, it's not fearing it. Your thinking brain, the limbic system, is actively participant and aware that in that moment you are upset. Now I'm going to use me as this example. When I tell you about my story, my Milo who went missing, and I told you guys many times already, there was other stuff going on, and I'll never forget the day that he went missing, because in my mind I immediately knew, okay, this is where I already know what I'm going to be exploring, processing. I'm going to be processing upset. I'm going to be processing an upset that has everything to do with the word attachment, because when we love something, someone, anything, when you're invested, which you always will be, that's the whole point. When something is in a place of hurt, it's because you're invested. The hurt, which is why, to me, the loss of focus when you go to the hurt is that you're not seeing the love that is from your heart, and also the part of focusing on the hurt just makes it that much worse. But everybody will allow that visibility as they gain mastery and the practice of being participant with your feelings, with your own thinking mind. What do I mean by that? I mean that if you're, for example, with this weight on your shoulders and you're not aware of it, you have no awareness of that feeling in a way that allows you to think it through. As our neuroscience psychiatrists talk about when they work with their patients, they walk them through. Tell me how your body feels, not the memory, not the story. They focus on explain to me, describe to me. And so what do you think about this? And they work with that thinking brain so that the person creates and establishes a relationship with the feelings, the emotions that are going through the body, because that's what empowers you from within. It is not by telling the story. In fact, they say when you tell the story, you're reliving the emotions. Your body holds count. From the body keeps the scorebook. And therefore, when we relive something without allowing ourselves to process, so think through the emotions, we're not seriously in that moment processing. We are simply seriously reliving the pain. And the ability to be aware is up to the person, and then the consistency to do this is also up to the person. And the ease or not ease, this is where all of you will know yours. And it's you doing your inner growth in your pace. So some people, for example, they don't like to sit and contemplate and be with those emotions. They prefer to go out and get distracted. And I don't, again, mean it in a negative way. We are always speaking in neutrality. I have to use words that will create a concept so that one can understand. And distraction is something very happening. Like my one friend that chose not to move beyond and allow himself to expand his intuition, that inner world. I told you guys that the community knows there's a very close friend of mine that when it came to us talking about intuitions and being able to know certain things, he literally said, I don't want to explore this. I don't want this. And it was because he doesn't want to be different than society. somehow he feels that would take away from his joy for life. And he's somebody who definitely, when there's to be serious, there's times where he's interrupted serious conversations where somebody was, talking about something they were going through, because he felt humor was necessary to lighten the mood, and really he would say it's because the person needs this. So we all are here to support each other. This is the beauty of empowerment, and when individuals are empowered from within. So an empowered ego self human being does not engage with what my friend did in a way that is defensive, because that you're not insecure. And so, for example, when he does that, because we will go out, and many times he has and will do that. I know he will. He actually even teases me about it when he's doing it. I understand, and I don't get angry. I don't take it personal, because at the end of the day, I also know that we all perceive life differently. And I don't know how to be disengaged from feelings, meaning I will always continue processing an emotion to support somebody versus go and make a joke that distracts somebody from the actual situation. However, this is where the person, for example, because I'm thinking of particular scenarios where we were helping a friend together, and so there were just different interactions where we were contributing to this person's right here, lifting that weight off their shoulders, because they had gone through an emotional breakup after 14 years. They were left, and they were also spoken ill to by the very person that they thought they would marry. It was very, very impactful. In fact, they started suffering from anxiety attacks, and very, very hard for them. So they had a very big support group, luckily, between me, my friend, and others that they have in their life. This is where various times it was a group of us, and my friend, like I said, would distract. So he would interject in some conversation we were having and start just being stupid, quote unquote, being silly. And when him and I would then talk about it, he would say, because this person needed it. They were needing it. But this is where that's his opinion. However, again, it's more than just one of us, and any person we are supporting, they are the key to their inner growth, to following their heart, to lightening their own weight. So that weight off the shoulders, it can be a temporary lift for those who are not choosing to empower themselves from within. And for example, this is a very good situation to use as tangible experience. This one individual definitely moved beyond the hardship. However, they definitely still depend on the external. And this is where, because when Milo, for example, went missing, going back to my example as well, and where for me it was knowledgeable what I was going to get to work with, because being participant with the body, mind, and heart of me always means I know that I'm going to experience an emotional situation, because I lost my cat. He's not going to come back, and I'm not going to like that. And so here is where, with the unknown elements of life, for those who are in, for example, a 4D space or 3D space, the 3D would be struggle exists. You're going to have to struggle. You're just going to have to get over it. And maybe you won't. Maybe you'll always suffer from it. And I'm being very short and brief to give the example and move back to the stories. For the 4D, it's you were meant to learn from it, and you called it on yourself because your soul decided it would go through and process attachment and move beyond attachment this way. Your cat gave itself up it sacrificed itself to support your spiritual journey, because animals are actually here. For those in the 4D, you guys know this, they're here to support us, but we're all here to support each other. Here I'm going to integrate the science, the holographic principle that I still haven't linked to, guys. I'm sorry. If anybody's interested, you know what, just ask me and I'll send you it through email, because I don't think I'm going to remember this week. As soon as I do remember, I'll update you. But the holographic principle, entanglement, this is what I'm going to talk about energy. So yeah, my Milo, I'm sure he was supportive of a lot of things when he went missing. Doesn't mean I'm happy. It's been 2 years at this point. No, I could have done without him going missing. I would have still learned to, transcend attachment. And so here's that aspect of free will, guys, through and through, and really following your heart. and it's more than just that inner growth mindset. Here I'm giving you that exact example. Once you are in the infinite higher human potential space of you, you know all of the different reasonings to the best of your ability, because there's so much more information that, for example, I have yet to read that can connect to experiences in life in a non-tangible way, meaning in that hypotheticals. The tangible would be Milo went missing and that is it. Whatever the reason is, he's a cat, he ran off. Okay, so the 3D part of you always having a struggle, that's an opinion. The part of 4D, he sacrificed himself for you, is another opinion. And they each, though, will claim to be facts potentially because they'll have the data. And they meaning the people who will bring forth that ideology, that concept. It's not necessarily an ideology in the ideology, it's an idea is what I'm trying to say. So remembering these aspects are easy for the empowered ego, and this is where you're not doing the cognitive dissonance dance. The ones who do the cognitive dissonance dance are like, nope, you only will have to go through it this way, or it's this way or the highway kind of thing. So they're not open to actually talking about something and allowing the person to decide their truth. They will basically be arguing with you, mansplaining you. This is that place. There's different ways that people would do that. And for the empowered, again, individual from within, it's something that you don't react to. So my friend, like I was saying, when he interjects, I don't react. I'm not insecure. I don't need to prove anything. I'm not there to interact with others to compete. As long as you are in a place of needing to speak up, and this is a good identifier for anyone who wants to achieve that higher infinite human potential, that's where you get to practice impartiality. And therefore you actually practice refraining from interjecting. And it's not only an action, it is actually the feeling. The feeling of you is where you bring yourself to neutrality. Otherwise your nervous system is still engaged with societal engagement and fight. And there you're really just oppressing your own feelings. It's very different. The difference is you choose you don't want to do it. I chose that I acknowledged what an insecure ego was at my teenage years, and I understood what it was and what it still is. If you are enlightened, if you are firm, if you are wise, if you are the owner of your life, you do not even flinch at something that is opposite of your opinion. Emotionally, mentally, physically, none of it. Not because you don't have an opinion, that's the whole point, because you're so confident about it. It reminds me when I watched Mulan, the emperor that talks about the mountain, when whatever his name is says you need to bow to me, and he says a mountain doesn't bow to the wind. I remember that. So this is where an empowered ego, an empowered self, an empowered human being doesn't even flinch if somebody says something that is completely opposite inside. It's not about the outside, because everybody from the outside can look like they're not flinching. The empath, those of you who tune in and know, is very clear, and it's so clear that it's beyond a shadow of a doubt for the empath. The things that are hidden, they're not sense of security. Things that are hidden for the human who hides, meaning they have that veil, that mask, and we've talked about this. That is the hurt. The hurt. So they, when the mask, the deceit, the lie, betrayal, anything of that sort, because usually somebody will only hide because they don't want to reveal, and the not wanting to reveal is an indication of fear. It's cowardice, fear. It's cowardice because I'm afraid to say something, and it isn't, again, in a way to say negative or positive. Anybody who's new, we do not judge humanity as evil or bad. We know humanity is very, very beautiful and sensitive. And so where there is that evil, that part, that this word that has been used for many years and may continue to be used for many years, this is all where that body was defending and will still defend. The more a person is aggressive, the more they are insecure. The more their sense of self is not in a place of anywhere, shape, or form love. Now, a person who's working with themselves and who may have a sense of self that does not feel good about themselves is a person who is part of society. So what I mean by that is when we think of narcissism, sociopathy, psychopathy, there are those who are members of society and have these traits. These traits, or what I think they're not considered necessarily traits in the psychological realm, but with the body element information that is being uncovered. And in fact, narcissism is one of the reasons why I ended up saying I want to be a part of this subscription, because they're covering narcissism and grandiosity. So we're going to get to find out a little bit more about that with the body in mind, which is going to lead me to finally conclude, because my understanding is, since the freeze response is our last nervous system's response when the ego, the person, the infant, is not being tended to by the parent, the caregiver, by 6 months old, which is when we have our first night terror and realize we're not one with our parent, we now know, or the way it's explained is that by 6 months old, we seek the caregiver because we know that that's the only way we're going to survive. The brain, in the meantime, is going through sensorial overload when it's not being tended to. If it cries, if he or she cries, when we have colic pains, anything we're going through is something new. So that unknown, uncertainty, unwanted, undecided, all of the fears are there, guys. This is why it's insecure ego, not because of egotistical or arrogant or any of that. It's the actual body that is in this state, and that will continue to be so. So that weight, for example, a weight is part of that fear, which is why empowerment from within lifts the weight off your shoulders permanently, because you're not in this fear place with life. And that's where the 3D, 4D instead still are. In fact, they have in the unknown elements of life, in the wise, besides the human elements, so their own culture, heritage, identity, they have all these 10, 20, 40, 50, however many items, which are subject matters, which are hypotheticals, which are their own theories, which are their own reasoning. And going back to the examples, so for me, when Milo went missing, like I said, I immediately knew I'm going to work through these emotions, I'm going to work through these thoughts, and I did. And it doesn't mean I'm going to like it or not like it, because I'm not going to enjoy that part about my Milo going missing. Who's going to enjoy losing your cat? That this is the part that somebody who wants to lock it in, of course, and it has to be a struggle, or you chose it, or it's for the better. They're still giving answers. So this is where the unknown elements of life is getting an answer. Why does the human body need an answer to the unknown? Because if you're in a dark room, what happens? But the body doesn't need it the minute the individual, the owner of the body, recognizes that feeling. And then from that, you say, okay, body, but there isn't any physical danger. And there is more of the knowledge that it will require whatever unique time it will require you, because of the personal relationship that you have, because of your own mindset. And that's where, once you're in the advanced place of the inner growth program, because you've taken a look at all of the things that are close and dear to your heart, so those inner child wounds, which I think is the term I used, even though today I wouldn't use those, but those aspects of what we carry from infancy that we remember. And in fact, it's more in the explicit memory, probably because the implicit memory was not in my peripheral view yet, but the explicit memory was. So all those autobiographical, semantic and autobiographical experiences. And what are those for our new listeners? They don't know. So the semantic experiences are the common knowledge things that your parents have told you of you growing up, right? Where they give you an image and they use words, and you know what you were like thanks to them. And so you know what operations you've been through, you know your history. The emotional one, so the autobiographical one, is where it's those incidents in your life when you're growing up and you remember that have an emotion to it. Now, the implicit memory, on the other hand, it's emotional and procedural. So it's the body and habits. So the body, for example, it can even be posture. That's how they explain it and make it very clear when we have chronic pain in places. And one of the examples they gave was IBS, and I think that was in the depression and nervous system one, which made me think, because I have scoliosis. So obviously the IBS that I suffer is from that. But I also feel, I obviously took a posture on as well. So it's related to physiological and also breathing. Like I do notice the breathing. Once you become so aware of being able to bring sense of ease to your body, and that right here, having a weight on your shoulders is a choice. Once you have all of these layers in your knowledge bank and you're saying, I can use this in my day-to-day. So it is always a choice. And some individuals are not necessarily in the arena of needing that. They prefer, for example, doing their own inner growth and emotional development, personal development with the external in mind. But those individuals, for example, are in fact not really tuning in to these episodes because this type of messaging wouldn't resonate anyways. The fact that you can be empowered from within and that you can lift that weight off your shoulders is not something they're considering, because to them having the weight and lifting it off is going to be a constant. There's always ups and downs. And so that's the 3D. For that 4D, they're still in the, you go through the dark night of the soul. You're always going to have something that you're learning when that uncertainty comes about. It's once you transcend. And so when you say, wait a minute, I know I don't need to be learned. I'm not here to learn anything. I'm actually simply living an experience. That's the day you've entered, at least began to enter the 5D, because you are not afraid of the uncertainty, unknown, unwanted, and you know that you don't need to learn. Like, this isn't a lesson. You commit, meaning you have a minute, you're like, wait, why is this happening? If you still have doubts of yourself, and what I mean by doubts is where if you still think that you need healing, that you need a lesson to learn, that there's a blockage, that there's anything, that's that intermediate level. It means you feel, which you're feeling in fact from that nervous system, that there may be something that needs to be addressed within you. And as long as you keep on staying there versus choosing from the mind. And here's the thing, guys. I know a lot of people will say you can lie to yourself, because I've had people say, but there are people that hide things. Yes and no. And what I mean by that is, if you have honest conversations with yourself with those emotions, no, you don't lie, you don't bullshit yourself. Not to mention, when that is the case, just FYI, watch the Heal and Emotion documentary, E-Motion. You will at one point or not have a physiological response, because those emotions, when they're bottled up in places, they will then become chronic pain, but it will become even more. And although this is where the 3D individual would not necessarily agree, that's what I said. Watch Heal and Emotion. You'll find some scientific data, and you'll begin to see this reality. Now, some people refute these individuals, but they are academics, they are scientists, and so it is a new field. There's not an accumulated number of data just yet, but when we look at the neuroscience, that, for example, walks that path. They're finding how much words impact our emotions, our day-to-day. The nervous system, it's regulated with breathing, but it is impacted also by, for example, the Schumann resonance. We have magnetite in our brain, the crystals of that the earth has too. It's the way that we were able to instill is our GPS for getting around. So the part that we are energy in motion is being shown, and there's different ways that different types of science will talk about it, like the holographic principle and the twin photon. This is where some people have said, well, there's not enough. That's just one of the experiments that has proven this, but it's still in the hypothetical. And what they mean is you can't really see it. It's creating a logic, but is not proven. And again, the person who's looking for that is going to follow mainstream, and mainstream is going to follow what science will keep on accumulating. And at certain points, the neuroscience will achieve enough visibility to allow the correlation between energy and body and everything to become part of that. So right now, it's still in its infancy, I would say. Moving on, the part that I was trying to get at is you don't hide things from you. If you do, you'll be in a place, or you would be in a place of getting sick, because your body will reflect what you're bottling up inside. It's like the one story I told you about the person who felt like they were being strangled, and they admitted to bottling up. They were trying to close off their hurt. They literally even justified it, and in my mind I'm thinking, you know better. Like, if you're gonna bottle it, anybody knows what it's like to pretend and try to keep something in. So that this part is why I say we don't really lie to ourselves. The person who allows that to continue to keep them in a place means there's still more to be done before they achieve that complete empowerment from within. That's all. And by learning about soul age groups for my spirituality community, you guys know this is where there's a specific layout of what every age group learns. Now, as a human being and somebody who says there's infinite, you can go beyond. That's exactly why I like bringing together the human and spiritual elements, because you don't have to not become enlightened. It is all your choice, free will. I will say it again. The minute you have a piece of information that can support your growth is the minute you are making a choice. This is why I share all the different data points. I share so that people have it, and then you get to choose what you're going to do with it. That's the ability to how can I put it? Once it's out there, it's known. Even if somebody doesn't believe in it, it's something that was said by a person who exists and who applies it, FYI. So for me, when Milo went missing, example, it wasn't about struggle. It wasn't about him having to. Those are just two of the hypotheticals, two of potentials. At the end of the day, it didn't really matter to me which one it is. It still doesn't matter to me. What I know for a fact is that I love my cat, and that I had to accept that he left. And that meant simply working with emotions as any other human being would work with emotions. And all the hypotheticals in the world will not delete the experience. And here's where those in the space of 4D will think of that as something that needs still quote unquote healing. And see, to me, something that needs healing means it's broken. My heart's not broken, meaning, yeah, I miss him. And so somebody would interpret it as broken. But no, I love my cat. And so to be completely neutral to him leaving, that's where it's more like not a catch-22, but yeah, that's not possible, for I cherish my relationship. And so I'm neutral towards it, yes, because I know it happened. I accept it, yes. I don't surrender. There's no surrendering something like that, because the part that the cat existed and that I cherished him in my heart is still there, and that he went missing is still there. Those are all aspects. So the emotions, let us not ignore them. That's the part. Now, those who want to box it up, like I was saying, that keeps the emotions not flowing. It keeps the emotions stuck in different formats, because you're choosing to give it a word. So I'm going to always be upset that cat went missing, or that this happened, this death happened. Choosing that keeps your state of body, your being, in that with your primary and secondary consciousness. Choosing neutrality, choosing empowerment, choosing to process it every time it comes up with love, you're making a choice. And the part of surrender, for those who are inclined to think they can forget somehow about that, I mean, how can I put this? I would say that there can be aspects that get processed. Only you guys will know this. So for me, I'm at peace with Milo going missing. I was at peace the day he went missing, meaning I already knew it is what it is, more than anything. It's that power of now. This is the thing. You don't think of the past or the future. You accept what is, and then you work with the thoughts and the feelings, because that's what's coming up. That's what makes the experience of life for your everyday. So this is for my people who are looking to be in this place. You don't want to think of it as having to be a struggle or having it to be the dark night of the soul or any kind of lesson. If you're ready to completely be that empowered version of you within the infinite space. If you still need answers to why something unknown, unwanted, undesirable, uncertain happened, then you're still looking to want to see outside of you, as the existentialists put it, as even the psychologist with the human dilemma, and that is where you'll keep on utilizing your tangible subject matters, your tangible spirituality subject matters, all those things that give you answers. And you'll keep expanding also through that, though, because you'll keep learning and adapting and processing those emotions in whatever ways. So some people may do it through sports or through creative like theater. I know some people, they express those emotions through theater, and so that's where the growth comes. Back to using my examples with the one friend who interjects and brings the humor. That's their way of wanting to deal with life. And so, for example, they acknowledge that they have an option to expand. They choose not to expand their stagnancy. They choose to utilize distractions in an effort to keep moving forward. Does it mean they don't grow? No, they grow. They grow all the time. Those feelings, though, those feelings stay in that place because they're actually choosing to continue to feel the weight, and then to feel it off the shoulders, on the shoulders, in the way that there's that cliche sentence, whether it be 3D or 4D. 4D is the shadow night of the soul, dark night of the soul, ascending, awakening. There's always something you're unblocking, some child wound, some past life. Like they just keep on doing that. And for the 3D, it's you have to struggle because life is with struggle. That's how you learn. The 5D place is none of that. You're human, you're having your experience. You can choose whatever it is you want to choose, because that's where your mind is the secondary and primary consciousness of you. In the minute your body's experiencing that feeling and you are participating is the minute you get to choose what you're going to do next. And so the friend, I know that when he interjects, it's to be of support, just because every person, by the way, usually in a group setting, wants to help each other. And so if we're with somebody who's upset, everybody's trying to support the person who's upset. And I know that sometimes the aspect of seriousness, choosing that feeling and the thought and the way you want to pursue, is always going to be the best possible way for you in the moment. This is what is also always important to remember. And me knowing this and recognizing the differences is what also allows just all the interaction to happen. But again, it's because I'm not in a place of having to say something, share it. And it's a conversation where all of us want to contribute. So the part of the individual is what you can understand more. But if somebody needs the help, they're really getting all the help they can get. And in this case, this person definitely was wanting the distraction, as well as the serious conversation, as well as the just being alone, the usual way that we deal through life, right? Deal with things. And so that's the beauty of being an individual, is we can relate to each other when we remember feelings. When it comes to your empowerment from within, when you can participate, one, recognizing that you really can't lie to yourself. You can choose to distract, like my friend, when he's choosing to do what he does. But he also acknowledges, I'm sure in his moments, because we talk about it after the fact, he acknowledges in moments what he's choosing to do. And that's the place of how you view life, yourself, and humanity matters. And what I mean by that is, if there is an idea of struggle, that has to be a constant. If there is an idea that there will always be a lesson, if there's still something that needs to be in that unknown elements of life, so that why you will continue to face those aspects. The minute you are completely empowered from within is where there is not that. Those are all now to that side as elements that you acknowledge. But your experience, your life experience, is being experienced from your feelings in the moment you're experiencing the happening. And what I mean by that is, again, your mind, your thinking brain is not engaged with pointing a finger or asking a why. You're actually engaged in the very instant your nervous system and your emotional rational brain hemispheres are reacting, your ego. That's why it's no longer insecure. It's because you immediately feel the insecurity arise. Insecurity is reflected in anything that upsets you. And so, like I gave you again, Milo, immediately when he went missing, I'm like, here it is. I'm going to get to work with these feelings. And it wasn't, though, because I had to. This is where the difference lies for those who think they still have to. And somebody would say, well, aren't you always saying inner growth is forever? Yes, but there's a way of inner growth happening with empowerment that is different than when inner growth is happening because you think you need to grow. Because you feel still that there is an area that you don't know about. And so here's again when there is the choice between society engagement, so the ego looking outside of itself, and the ego that is disengaging from it completely. And it isn't one better than the other. It is an actual natural choice you'll make on your own. Because if you're somebody who is inclined to continue to think of things with twos, so having in the unknown whys, answers, you're still doing and will stay with that society engagement because you're needing there to be a reasoning. And I'm using Milo because, like I said, it's personal, so I can speak of it. And it's actual. Like the minute he went missing, I didn't say it had to be. I knew all the hypotheticals because I am involved in that human and spiritual element life. I know about being an empath. I have dreams. I have intuitive messages, channeling, all of this. That is where, at the end of the day, like I said, free will, mind over matter. It's a belief. Everything is and formulates in thought form. It is not something that it has objective fact proof. The fact that he went missing, there's not a picture or a message from him, right? If you have a human, they can write you a letter. Milo didn't have that. He's a cat. He left and that was that. And so what I'm saying, when something's in the unknown space, if you're still needing to provide it with a rational reasoning, that's where it's not in the infinite higher human potential view. You're using society engagement. You're using whatever information to give yourself a rational and a reason. So the why, the human dilemma, when psychologists term it, that's what they term it, because you're going to ask why, because you want a why, because you need a purpose. We don't need purpose, yet we do, but you don't need it when you're empowered from within. So again, that weight being lifted off your shoulders, the examples that I wanted to share a little bit about can be where there's responsibility, where there is you feeling that you need to do something or not something, but it's also when you don't speak up. There's weight that accumulates when people do not speak their truths. And many people do not speak their truths because of that veil and not recognizing it. And so here's where, like, the one who is bottling up their emotions, even though they're a person who knows about spirituality, they consider themselves enlightened and awakened and wise, which every person will, because we all have wisdom to share with ourselves. This is the part. It shouldn't be different. The person who feels differently does exist, and that's the person who's definitely looking to be supported, and it's a good thing, because hopefully they'll find that support, and that support would lead them to empowerment. The one individual that we were helping still has their person that supports them. They are still not completely empowered, but they may never be. They definitely are part of the 3D community, and they are in a place of compliance with the confines of societal knowledge and culture. They're open to newness, but the way they look at life does not involve the understanding that they can work with the fear that is coming from their body. They're utilizing stigma, stereotypes, boxes, labels, things to identify where they fit, who they're with, what's right, what's wrong, and that's their way of conducting the growth. So the emotional element, yes, is explored, but only with the cognitive approach. The body, if it's introduced to them, it will be done so eventually, and maybe at that point they will realize something different towards humanity. So opening up and stopping to cast stones and label humanity. That 4D isn't any different because they lock themselves up in the conspiracy theories. And not lock themselves, I shouldn't say that. They believe in specific storylines because they have what they consider their proof, and so they're locked in that, meaning this is the why. So example, Milo went missing around a very specific time where there was specific astrological and Ascension 5D stuff going on, which I knew about, which is why it wasn't surprising to me that day he went missing. And I also knew exactly what areas of the collective, so humanly speaking, on Earth and everything was involved, which is why I knew attachment, that word. So some would say, well, there you had answers. Having knowledge is not the same as seeking an answer because you're questioning something that happened to you. So the knowledge, that's exactly what bringing together human and spiritual elements for those who are in this realm. That's how we're empowering you to transcend any of the realms completely. But also, this is knowledge. It's all knowledge. And so for anyone who's completely in this place of 5D, you, like I, keep up to date with every aspect because it's all connected. The Earth's Schumann resonance affects our emotions. We learned, the science has shown this with the astronauts. The first time astronauts went into space, they understood that of the human body. Again, there's a lot of information on the nervous system that's coming forth. Reiki healing is now finally within the realm of considered a medicine, even though it's a holistic and complementary medicine. They've mapped out the energy field. We have an aura. We have emotional, etherical, astral. There's, 7 bodies. They're listed on the website. Point is, for those who know that all of what is part of the knowledge bank of humanity exists, you wouldn't be oblivious, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm trying to answer that. No, it wasn't an answer to what happened. It was me having the knowledge of what is taking place and being able to, in fact, know for the collective. And obviously, I'm part of the collective because we're all connected, the holographic principle. It's only natural that if that's what's happening in the moment, that I'm going to experience something as well. This is the difference when you're empowered from within versus I need to learn something. And so this happened because I needed to learn. No, I didn't need to learn something. It happened because there's a dynamic at play that I understand. So for me personally, it's mathematical. What I follow allows me to know exactly what's taking place in energetic realm, which affects us with the emotional, mental, and then physiological realm, because life and energy are one. And so not to lose our focus here, what I was, again, trying to say is I didn't think of that happening as it having to happen. When it happened, though, because of me having knowledge of every element that is a part of life on this planet, and that is available to us thanks to subject matter experts, I knew that the event is and was connected to attachment as a word, is what I'm using, for what everyone in the collective, whether 3D, 4D, would go through. And in fact, there's more than one person that had certain things happening in that time. Now, the part of when, let's say, you're thinking and feeling very strongly that it is something that happens to you, the weight, right? So the weight that's being lifted is because there is something more to learn. Then you know that you're bringing a healing, a love of self. And so here's where that sense of self is important. And bottling up doesn't help that, because bottling up is shying away from it. And in your own privacy, you can allow yourself to explore the aspects of insecurity and the aspects of security. And so, like the one that was bottling up recently, they know about their upbringing, so they know why they do certain things. And yet, when they justified the part of what they were doing, here's where, how can I put this? That's a choice, but it makes sense, because obviously for them, their growth continues to involve learning to love humanity. So the mirror, remember that sentence with the mirror? And when you can look at the things you dislike, that those are the things you need to heal. This is where, because that person, in fact, they cast a stone, meaning they fight for justice. They're the ones who are being done the disservice. Somebody mistreated them. The mistreatment is indicative of the person's immaturity. So they are exchanging that moment of emotion for themselves with judgment. That's duality. And it isn't better or worse, but that is where the conversation is in the intermediate level of the inner growth program for that individual. What they can do if they choose and are inclined to be in the advanced place. So impartial is to eventually, instead of justifying that they were closing their heart, they would have been open to, I should not close my heart. I will go through this. It's going to be okay. Okay, that's one example. But let's stick for a minute to the intermediate level and how this is playing out, because I definitely know how it's still playing out. It's that how it went that day. The next day, they allowed themselves to say, but what should be expected of me? I mean, of course, I'm closing my heart off. It's been broken gazillion times. There's no reason for me to keep it open. That's it. That's their conclusion right now. And so that means they will continue. So the soul age group that is learning about relationships, they will continue their journey with that hurt, and most likely it's through the exchange. So right here, they will have an exchange with the individual at some point, or they will have an exchange of some sort with this external. So with societal knowledge, meaning they will evaluate relationships, they will evaluate heartbreak, they will continue to evaluate it according to justice and injustice, to hurt and not hurt. So it's a blend of 3D, 4D. Once and only once they're instead able to disengage the heartbreak from the individual and the external circumstance on their own in that specific arena, and therefore disengage completely from any dislike or like with the person and all of that the person has done and all that life brought them from the past to that moment, that's when they will have completely healed that specific situation. And it always will deal with complete unconditional love of self, because we mirror. So here I will read that, because it's an important one to read again. The mirroring quote, for the regular listeners, you know it, but my life is a mirror. I understand that the people that surround me mirrors different aspects about myself. The people that I feel love towards reflects my love back to me. The people that I dislike reflects the part of me that needs healing. I am opening up to heal and move into complete love. And so here, the intermediate level helps for that to happen. Once you do realize you can be impartial towards things that used to weigh you down, you'll know you're in a different space with that specific aspect. And here's where there are those, again, they're not looking to do that type of journey. So my one friend who's choosing to stay connected to life in a way that allows him to keep being part of the mainstream, even though he doesn't consider himself mainstream, but he wants to be able and fit a specific role in life. And that is a very specific viewpoint for him. It's not a block or not a block. This is where, when you're in that empowering place, you guys know this, you're meant to support each other. So that is his journey. And it will lead him to where he will be happy at a certain point. Or it will lead him to accepting defeat, quote unquote. I don't know which one it is yet because he hasn't updated me. So he's still in a place of contemplation on how to achieve the things he wants to achieve. And that's where the other individual, for example, instead is achieving things but is not grateful or looking back and realizing how life never did do them a wrong with the different jobs they ended up getting into. This is a whole nother example, guys, but there's a person that I know that they've gone through a different career journey of sorts, and they're not appreciative or not, but they ended up falling into that right ideal job for them. And so here again, anytime that you can appreciate something that is happening, and therefore you do take a look at those feelings, that weight can be lifted. Does it mean that you're in complete harmony? Not necessarily. This is where you choose if that weight is going to stay off your shoulders completely, or if you're going to continue engaging in the aspects of the inner world and the external with the need for a why to those unknown, uncertain, unwanted. So when dealing with those, here's where you'll naturally go within. As an empowered individual, you'll be able to lift that weight off your shoulders. At that point, you'll contemplate the feelings and the thought, because your body's in sense of ease. Now, it doesn't mean there's complete unconditional love or not. I just gave you those different examples for a reason, because those people, they still lifted that weight off their shoulders in that moment. They did go within, and they are empowered. We're all empowered. We all do use that self. The aspect of insecure ego is important because you immediately do societal engagement, looking outside of you. It's only when you acknowledge that, this is why I gave you the example of Milo. In my personal knowledge bank, I simply knew, okay, I'm going to deal with emotions. That is it. That is the only thing. I'm dealing with emotions, and it's connected to attachment. The attachment, like I said, there was knowledge from my different pieces of knowledge bank of information for how and what is taking place on a 5D ascension space, for those who know what I'm talking about. But leaving it in tangible words, I knew that I was going to be upset that my cat went missing. So attachment, because I loved my cat. It's common sense. However, needing to keep it in the you have to struggle to learn, or it had to happen for a reason, that's the part where you're not in the unknown with complete and with the complete confidence that there is not a why or not a why. This is the power of now action. It's now. There is no reason that is confirmed. Again, there's no videotape of there being the proof, the tangible proof. Milo saying, I'm leaving you now because I don't want to be with, there's none of that. And seriously, it makes me giggle sometimes, because the other stuff that was happening was also related to the same concept, the same dealing with emotions, but connecting it to something loving, something caring, something important. And here's where life is always doing that. But the beauty, once you're in complete free will, guys, because 5D, unconditional love and neutrality, is you bringing forth, and for those of you who are in this space, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is free will. This is you manifesting. This is you being the magician. When they taught the tarot, the magician, there's a specific feeling when you're finally in this alchemy and just, and it's a feeling of ease from the body. There is no fear, meaning there is no questioning of why. You don't need a why. Even if there is a why, you already have it in the back of your mind, the why. There's not a doubt in your mind. There's not a question in your mind, because you're living your life. So that weight, there's no weight on your shoulders, even though there are things that they do weigh you down, but they don't weigh you down in the same way. What happens is, they're important. So Milo, or my family, moments of uncertainty with money, for example. I could say and equate that to something that is a weight, but it isn't a weight to me, because I don't feel it as weight. I don't feel life as weight. But of course, there's concern. So there are emotions that are in the category of concern. So physiologically speaking, my body isn't necessarily light. You see, this is the difference when you are in a relationship with the body, heart, and mind of you. And so sensorially speaking, as you're experiencing, breathing, feeling, you are with the thinking brain present. The ego of you're present with that moment. You're not disengaged. You're not focused on what the external is doing, because you're coexisting with the external. And so the external is not your threat, is not a physical threat. There is no fear of it, which is why you can stand firm. Does not mean you do not get frustrated, anxious, all of that. That's where you do, but you're participating in that moment. So physiologically in here, that mastery of the mental, emotional, and physical layer that I told you about to get to the Akashic records. This is where you practice this in the empowerment space. Once you're completely empowered, you're not reacting in the way others do, because you're not looking outside of you for answers. You don't need answers. You are simply saying, I'm dealing with something. And even if you want to contemplate, so obviously there's contemplation after the fact or during the fact. This is where it's not an end in that sense. So you're always growing, because in any given moment you're actually participating with all the three layers. But getting back to a bit more tangible for those who need a little bit more of that support with the weight and the shoulders. If you're hiding something from others, so you're not voicing your true opinion, your true anything, your body will definitely be weighed down. The headaches, or simply, thinking, right? And then there's an accumulation of emotion that happens, that builds up. And so you want to be able and try your best to find whatever compromise so that you may start speaking your truth with people and in all circumstances. You can decide, because you know yourself, you know what you like and what you don't. So some people don't like confrontation. And I've always said to them, okay, you don't like confrontation, but maybe if you have a friend you trust or someone you trust, or a diary, do something to allow yourself to express that aspect, and then find a way to use what you are comfortable with to get it out. Because as long as you're not getting it out, you're going to be building it in. And that's where, once you let it out, the weight is lifted off those lovely shoulders. The same thing goes when you're in hypotheticals. You don't know what's going to happen next. You haven't taken action on something. You've decided you want to take action. The minute you take action is the minute you're going to have that weight lifted off your shoulders. The empowerment from within is where you go within, explore those feelings, explore the mind, and bring your mind and heart to harmony. Make your decision based on the things that you feel are in your best interest. So the beginner's journey of the inner growth program is where you begin making choices that make you feel light and happy. The distraction, if you guys like distractions, utilize it in a way that allows you to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. My one friend, he is somebody who does know himself. Every person knows themselves. That's why I was saying we don't lie. Even if we're lying, we're choosing that path. And it isn't good or bad. That's the path that the person's going to take. The body will eventually come out with those emotions, which is when the people make the changes. I met one person, I never forget. They had a brain tumor, and after they healed from that, they left. They left their marriage. They left their job where they were making good money. I don't even know what happened to them. It makes me sad because I really love them. They're a friend, but they went and they left and went to live in nature and teaching, I think it was English, and then they're off the grid. So that experience though is what made them do this change. They were older and they said, I didn't like my life where it was. You don't have to get there. The inner growth program and everything that I do share is to support the individual who definitely is not looking to have a nervous breakdown or be in that space. And it is to say, you can always bring harmony and realize that life is with you if you allow everything that's taken place to be just for a minute in your knowledge bank, that you would not ever do anything to harm yourself, and nor would life. And the concepts of life are concepts. There's belief systems, yes, there's also very real things that are happening, but in a moment, just for a second, when you are needing to lift something that weighs you down. Just give yourself 2 seconds to sit with the brain, the thinking, and the emotional. So just give yourself 2 minutes to breathe. Well, 5 minutes actually. Do the rhythmic breathing that regulates our nervous system. So you're breathing in and out. So if it's a 10-second, you breathe in for 4 seconds and then you're exhaling for 6 seconds. This way you can have your nervous system get to a place of neutrality to the best of your ability. Allow the silence of the mind to take a minute, and then you allow yourself to evaluate what is worrying you, what is weighing you down, and to make just choices of what steps to take that are reasonable and for you. So that's that inner growth journey and mindset and lifestyle approach in action. Now, this doesn't mean that you become completely empowered from within or not. That's where your consistent choice, if you do feel that you want to be completely empowered and so that you can, begins. And it is a relationship with the ego, the insecure ego from the body, heart, and mind, not in a way of judgment. It's you consistently learning that you do own the power, because the feelings and thoughts are yours. And so you're disengaging from thinking that the external is what directs how you feel, okay? Because the feeling is what impacts your day-to-day. The thinking is where you can expand, and if you stay in a neutral space with unconditional love, you're going to allow yourself not to be in cognitive dissonance, and so to explore the human elements, the unknown of life elements, and the essence of you elements, and you bring yourself to harmony by choosing, okay, now that I have a clear picture of what's upsetting me, here is what I'm going to do that's going to make me happy. And you're not looking to get that from life or another. No. The process is yours by choosing. Lifting the weight is, again, if you choose to think of life in twos, and so that struggle has to be there, you will simply relive different scenarios with that same weight. If you choose that it doesn't have to be in weight and struggle, and you really claim the body, heart, and mind with ownership, you're always then working with the emotional layer. So see mental layer, emotional layer, and the body layer. And so by the point in which you begin impartiality towards the external, you are knowing that when things happen, it doesn't have to be because you need to fix something, learn something. There has to be a why. And that's when you begin embarking in the complete 5D, infinite, higher human potential space of consciousness. You're allowing yourself to know, I have all these potential whys. I don't need a why because I'm experiencing it, and what I want to focus on is this moment. That's the power of now. And I don't want to stay in this weight. I don't need to stay in this weight. There's no reason for me to stay in this weight. I'm dealing with something I'm not happy about. And that's exactly why the ego is no longer insecure and mature / empowered, because you're tending to it versus engaging with a reaction towards any other person or life, towards a why. There is no dilemma. So when I present the Milo thing, those who view life in twos, they will think I've gone through a dilemma. They will think that I'm still in a place of blockage. They will mansplain. They will tell me their thoughts. And the empowered individual will not regard that as theirs, but as the mirror of, in fact, it's an information. It's a data point of that person. When somebody says, your body doesn't even flinch because, again, you are the owner of you. You are that free will. This is the free will full on. You are your magician because it's about the experience, the moment. It's not about vision. You're not in this external world. You know you'll get whatever it is you choose you want. That's the whole point. You want $1 billion, you know you're going to get it. You're not concerned with that. You're working on that. So it is very fascinating. And then the support between each other, obviously, that's the most beautiful thing, when you can, from within, empower also somebody else and support in group setting or individual setting, lifting that weight When it comes to speaking truths, this is very important. When it comes to being proactive, it's very important. We all know, the more something builds up, the more you get anxious, and so that is normal. If you're not letting it out, it's going to build up somewhere. So work with yourself to the best of your ability. If you choose unconditional love and neutrality and kindness, and to relate to the people that do love you and that you feel supported by, there will always be something more for you to allow to take place in your life and for you to claim as well. So I look forward to hearing from you guys on the topic. Calling in on Anchor or leave a voice message. And you can also always email me. You find the email in the About section on the blog, luna12780.com, and on the website, inspiringhumanpotential.com. Have a great day. Sending you all lots of love, hugs, and smiles.